It seems like anytime I talk about the cost of living, there are these people who will hyper focus on where I live, as opposed to addressing things in what I feel are a more substantive or nuanced way. Um, I guess the most egregious example of this would be a comment that Jem left where he wrote, "Bro, get out of California. It's too expensive. You got 49 other states to choose from." So, as someone who has lived here my entire life, um, who has had to deal with the cost of living now for close to 3 years, I can say that most of it is manageable with the exception of rent. Like if you actually go and watch the video I made a few days ago, There's No Chance for Me, I was specifically referring to my belief that I would never be able to find a place to live that wasn't, overpriced. Um, because the average rent cost out here is like 1,800, damn near $2,000. And I've said before that to me, it doesn't make sense for people to pay so much to live somewhere that whenever they have other bills come up, they can't afford to pay them. Not because they're barely working or, their job doesn't pay them enough money. They're simply getting charged such an obscene, crazy amount for rent that it wipes away their funds for anything else. And I remember when I had the situation come about last year with, or rather, year before last year, with the relative that was charging me, that tried to charge me $1,000 every month when I didn't have a job, and I I said, I would rather pick a scenario of sleeping in a car, like I did at that point for those 3 weeks, than sit here and get charged again a crazy amount of money that I can't come up with every 30 days, because I can last a hell of a lot longer when left to just having to like buy food or get stuff fixed on the car, which is not every month. Like just basically the only thing I have difficulty affording is rent. Everything else I don't really see as being overpriced. And if I do, like, there are a lot of different food items I think are ridiculous, fast food in particular. That's an issue that is going to follow me to other places. And we could talk about how they never acknowledge that it's just not easy to move. Depending on how much stuff you have, right? And where you're moving to, it could be via plane or getting in your car and just driving over there. The cost of going over there is already something you have to calculate, as well as where are you going to live, what new job are you going to have, if you can even get a job to begin with, where are you going to stay in the meantime. It's not as easy as people like Jem try to make it appear. Um, the other part of this is that, so again, a lot of these guys hyper focus on the state I'm in instead of these being American issues, where he says you got 49 other states to choose from. Well, let's talk about those 49 other states. If I know that in the United States of America, 63, I've heard it's actually gone up to 64, but over 60% of all Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, or rather, a majority of us can't afford $1,000 emergency. What does that tell you? Because think about it. If 40 million people, and it's not even 40 million because we've actually been having more and more people leave, but if 39 million people live in California and there are over 300 million people in the United States, that very clearly means that this whole like struggling to make ends meet thing is not something that is exclusive to CA. That this is an issue that affects people in other places, and the reasons for that are very, again, there's several factors, but one of them is that in many other states, the minimum wage is either lower than it is out here or has not been raised since 2009. So if you, for example, go to Texas, right? And you're working, let's say rent out there, I've seen it's probably like 1,100. It is significantly cheaper than it is out here, and I won't contest that. But the catch is that the wages are less than half of what they are over here. I mean, why would I be excited to work for 3 hours for what, $21, $22? And then in a lot of these other states, you have all types of laws on the book. Like, for example, if I'm not someone that, smokes, weed or anything, but just I'm giving the example of how a lot of these other places have different rules depending on where you are, which can also be a deterrent for someone to want to live over there. And I said, I don't want to move to, against whether it's Texas, New York, Illinois, especially not Chicago, and have no one that I know that lives there, because that means if I cannot make it financially, I will have nowhere to go. I will just be screwed. I will have no assistance, and that's just not something I look forward to doing. But yeah, it's really just a matter of, I look at the cost of things out here, and the only thing I think is outrageously priced and is just unaffordable and, to hell with it, is rent. And that's why I talked about how the state has, I believe it's 200,000 homeless people. And what's really interesting is that we have homeless people who work. We have homeless people who have a 9-to-5 job and they sleep in their car. They would rather lease a car for $200 a month or $300 a month than pay out $2,000 just to sleep in a 1-bedroom apartment. And of course, I don't endorse that, but I understand them. I get where, if you have to pay for food and gas and all these other things that you need to either survive or to go and make more money, that you're going to forego the ridiculous cost of rent as much as you can, so that you can always meet these other bare minimum expenses. So yeah, it's really just, I don't think the stuff out here is so overpriced that I couldn't afford it, beyond rent. Like, if I didn't have to worry about rent, and I used to not have to worry about rent, just a few short years ago, I'd be able to survive with relatively little to no issue. It's only a matter of just when you take rent and make it so high, and then also say, hey, your car needs 700, 800, 900 in repairs, get that fixed. Hey, food is like 200, 300 every month, go buy that. Hey, gas is like 300 every month, go buy, when you start to throw this giant amount of money on top of all of these other things, just kind of like eating away at you, that's where we get into the problem or the issue. But yeah, I don't think that any of these problems are going to go away. The only thing that I would have an easier time doing is affording rent, and it's like, I guess that's cool, but that assumes I'm able to even get a job in one of these other places that doesn't, get rid of me after a couple of days or weeks like they like to do. Or, if have a repeat of what happened over here, where you start working somewhere and they start you off with several shifts a week to then eventually like 1 or 2 or 1, just a lot of the problems with the lack of labor regulations and just general unaffordability are going to persist in other places. Like I said, national statistics show that most people are living paycheck to paycheck, can't afford $1,000 emergency, and you simply are not going to escape those problems by moving to another state. You might be able to mitigate them a little bit, dodge it for a little while, but you have to assume a lot of stuff is going to fall in place to not get screwed over just as much there as you are over here. And that's the craziest thing to me. Like, I remember I went to my job when I drove down to Texas back in January, and I thought about how, the people that work there, they're getting 8-hour shifts like I used to before they raised the wages, but you're making $7 and nothing on your menu is less than $10. That means you have to work at least 2 hours to be able to eat at your own damn job. And people don't think that's crazy, But man, that comment, it's like, bro, get out of California. I would love nothing more than to be able to believe that if I just pack up my bags and go to Nevada or Arizona or Utah or any of these other places, magically there's going to be this great paying job, and I'll live in some neighborhood where the rent isn't crazy high and people are not blowing each other's brains out every 5 seconds. But the truth is, These issues persist all across the U.S. That is why you see homeless people and people who are barely making it in all these other states as well. It's just not as plentiful simply because there aren't as many people there. And it's unfortunate when the way that people think is so limited that they create these insta fixes. You see this with the employment thing too. You have these guys talking about become a dentist, go back to school and become a nurse, and like they completely cut out the part where, okay, who's going to pay for your basic living expenses while you're going to school full time or whatever to get these pieces of paper that are going to magically make your life better. But that's why I said, like, this stuff is not about thinking about things and having a strategy and like, okay, this is true, but you also they don't care. They just throw out these half-baked solutions so that when something bad happens, they can say, "I'll see you. If you listen to me, then everything would be so much better." Man, it's sad that adults, they will not think critically about things. If you just magically move to another state, it will all get better. Trust me.